up a full game of DBMM 100 and play it out. Yeah, so there you go, folks. I read that quite a bit. Okay, Ian, I'll be here. Another news. I was fortunate enough to be given a copy of the Clash of Spears Rules playtest version. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to read through the entire book, probably about 95% of it. DBMM is a fantastic game, Gareth. I know you have your reasons, but I really always enjoyed DBM, DBA. And DBMM has elements to it that I always thought were missing. Like, I think stratagems, and a lot of people might disagree with me, but I think stratagems was always something I felt that should be part of a game, an Ancients battle. And lo and behold, DBMM added this aspect of a battle. But anyway, let me get back to my original topic here of Clash of Spears. I've been talking about that set of tactical skirmish rules for some time. Very excited. And like I mentioned, I was fortunate enough to be able to get a copy of the playtest version, thanks to the author, one of the authors, and basically join the playtest team, I guess, in a way. I'll definitely give my feedback. And I spent the entire day yesterday with all my excitement reading just about the entire rulebook. The only parts I didn't read were the details of the different army lists and scenarios that come with the book, or the playtest version. But my lowdown at this point on it is that I entered reading it very excited, and I enjoyed the first sections of the rules extensively. As I got to about the midpoint of the rules and towards the end, I saw a lot of similarities with other game systems I've encountered in the past, including Games Workshop games or Warhammer Ancients battles. But that's just the impression I got, the feel I got. And then as I picked up and read the second half of the rule book, that's not a bad thing, by the way. And it's only slight. Don't get me wrong here. But as I read the second half of the book later on in the evening, I got into the scenarios and army creation. And this is where the magic happened for me and convinced me that this game is fantastic. And had a lot of new ideas thrown in the mix. It wasn't just grabbing at various different rules and throwing them together with a hodgepodge of... this actually has some very fantastic ideas for a set of rules. My favorite parts so far are the way... And this kind of comes from the Too Fat Lardies. If you've played any of the most recent Too Fat Lardies games, like Sharp Practice 2 or Chain of Command, the Too Fat Lardies have a unique way of deploying onto the battlefield, setting up the troops, and it's a fantastic part of that game. Well, I'm happy to say that this set of rules has a similar, very simplified version of that mechanic. Units have little counters, which are coded to actual models. They move on the table, they lock each other in place, and eventually all the models are placed on the table to replace those counters. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's described in a very elegant way, and this is a pre-battle deployment type of thing. I don't remember what it's called in the rules, but it usually precedes every scenario. I enjoyed that a lot. The scenarios are varied. They're interesting. The army lists are complete. A lot of different types of units involved and characters to command your forces. Really well done. Not overwhelming, but yet lots of variety in the army lists. Love that aspect. I love how the authors have gone into detail in making sense of a skirmish battle. This is something I feel that has been missing from the vast majority of skirmish level games out there, historical games. What are these forces? What are they doing? I mean, outside of making sense of them on your own and coming up with your own scenarios as to what these forces are, you know, it's pretty much generic, and none of it really made sense. The authors in Clash of Spears try and make sense of it. Here's what your forces are. Maybe it's part of a bigger battle. Maybe it's the patrol forces of this or that. But it always assumes that there's other things going on. You know, it's not just a bunch of war bands getting together and fighting it out. The scenarios reflect that, and the army creation rules, the warband creation rules, if you will, reflect that as well. I'm not going to go into details about it, but I'm going to say that's really an enjoyable aspect, and I appreciate that from the authors. They took the time to make sense of a skirmish battle through scenarios and army creation. Fantastic effort. So I applaud them for that. Excellent. Another aspect I really enjoy about these rules is its way in which it handles command and control, activation, and fatigue. Fatigue being that troops that wear armor are more likely to get exhausted just by moving, as well as doing aggressive things like launching attacks or all-out attacks. They accumulate fatigue, and you really got to take the time to manage those troops and their fatigue levels and give them a break. Let them rest. Fantastic that it's in there. And secondly, the way units are activated. It's not always guaranteed, and fatigue will play a role in that. It's fantastic the way the activation system works, and I think it's pretty unique the way it works. And command and control plays a part in that activation as well. Your characters can be used for that. Also, morale and breakpoints and all that is built into the fatigue system. So the more fatigue you get, whether it's from exhaustion or from fighting or from being demoralized, seeing your friends wiped out close by, that all plays into morale as well. So fatigue and morale are basically linked together. It's almost the same thing. Love that aspect. Shooting and close combat. Close combat is detailed to the level that it should be for an Ancients game. I enjoy that. The mechanics for it are very simple, yet detailed. I won't go into too much detail beyond that, but my intention is, after reading this and being quite satisfied with my reading, and I'm going to be giving feedback to the authors. I do have some ideas of my own, not much. I'm actually very happy with the rules the way they are so far. But I hope to get some playtest games in, hopefully with a couple of my friends online, trying out a few different ways of playing the game, for instance, with DBX-based figures, which the rules say you can do, but it doesn't address it directly and how it would be done. I'm going to try that because my figures right now are 15 mil DBX-based. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try out these rules with those figures because I could see how easily it could be done. But very happy to have read it and got a glimpse as to what it will be like. It's supposed to come out later this year, November approximately. Highly recommend them, folks, that you at least join the group, have a look at the War Games Spot blog and read about the mechanics in the game system. I'm highly excited about it. And it's one reason I'm going to get into those Victrix 28 mils. Yes. So I read quite a bit of that. I can't get a real feel for a new set of rules from a read through. I need to get troops on the table. I was just going to point that out. You really do have to sit and play it. Because when you read something like I did, like I was, that's from GW, that's from WOB, or that's pulled from this game or that game. I kind of think how this will go. No, you don't. You have to sit down, get the models on the table, and play a few times, not just once, a few times minimum, to get a feel for the game and really whether or not you like it. You can't just read it and make a judgment call. I've always felt that way. And whenever I try and give a review on something, I always try and play at least one, preferably more games before I give any kind of review. If I don't get a chance to play it, I'll say so in the video. But that's my impression so far. I'm very happy with it so far, just reading it. And it's got me hooked enough to set troops on the table and try it out. And I'm going to play a few games at my friends here online and see how it goes. So, Clash of Spears. Check it out, folks. The Wargame Spot. What else did I read? I read the entire rulebook of Kill Team before that. The number of troops is typically, I think, around 40 to 60 or more. You know, you go 80, 90, or even 100. You can fight huge battles if you wanted, I can imagine. But it's a tactical skirmish game. When I mean tactical skirmish game, I mean a game that's for units. This isn't a game where individual models run around killing each other. This is unit-based. You form little units of, I think the units can be 4 to 12, maybe larger than that, 4 to 12 models. But it uses a point system. So if you're new to the era or new to the game, there's a nice, convenient way to set up your battles and your scenarios. The scenarios are great that are in there. It's got quick battle scenarios for clubs. It's got narrative battles and for campaigns and that sort of thing. You could be quite creative with this game. And also, I could see right away how these rules are easily expandable to other periods, including the obvious one, the Renaissance, but also fantasy. I could see it going in that direction. The army lists that come in the book currently are Western Mediterranean, the Spanish, the Italians, Romans, the Greeks, about the 4th century up to pre-imperial Roman. It would be the same territory as Lion Rampant, but in my opinion, a far better game. That's not to put anything against those rules, but those rules never clicked with me. Mechanics never worked for me. But yeah, it's about that level of play. You could play on anything from a 4x4 or smaller, 3x4, on up to a full 6x4 table. We're talking 28mm figures. And I think it recommends, I'll have to double check this, I think it recommends that if you're using 15mm figures, or smaller, like multiple figures on a base, for instance, you still could play with the same ranges, distances, and table sizes as 28s, and it would probably be more realistic looking, which I would agree with. But the rules are so well done. I could see them in the future being used in tournaments if people wanted to play to that level. I think the rules need to be tightened up yet in certain areas, but it's designed where it has that same feel if you're a competitive gamer. But at the same time, it's like Muskets and Tomahawks, where it's very heavily driven, or can be, by a narrative style of play, whether you use points or not. Fantastic in that respect. This is really something to watch out for, folks. And there's something else about it I've known, but these rules are being self-published. And I knew immediately the benefits of that when I started reading it. These authors, and it's a couple brothers, I believe, you could see that what they're doing here in this game is almost like a labor of love. They love what they're doing. This isn't like, oh, we're limited to so many pages of rules. We have to use this mechanic. We have to have so many illustrations. You know, you can sense that that's not the case. This is self-published, so these guys can really do it the way they want to do it, and it feels that way. It's really a good read. And also the rules, the way they're laid out, is quite well. Each chapter ends with like an overview, a little scroll graphic with the highlights of what you've learned in that chapter and so on, which is very useful. I could go on and on about it, I guess, but I don't want to. I just highly recommend, if you're interested even slightly in getting into Ancients gaming, especially with those beautiful 28 mils that are out today, check these rules out. They might do the trick and keep your attention span for quite a long time, as opposed to something like lying rampant, which is like a puff in the wind as far as I'm concerned. It's too simple for me. Not that these rules are complex, but I highly recommend it.